So yesterday, I did a video saying what's going to happen, like what is going to happen in this upcoming Tory civil war that they've already predestined their destination of civil war, and is this, from what we saw at the time of the initial opening comments from Priti Patel, we've now seen her full speech in action, not only just her, but other Conservative MPs who attended this conference. The message was crystal clear. Why? Why did we get rid of this election winner thoroughbred and trade it in for this absolute donkey? Like, that was their message. And I said it very clearly. I was not sure if there was going to be a serious appetite, and I'm still not 100% sure if there's going to be a serious appetite to do this, which is to get rid of Rishi Sunak. Because I think without a clear successor for who they go to next, I don't think that's likely. But you never know. Momentum and the way things that happen in politics can sometimes overtake you completely. And as people have been on my channel last year, may well remember, every single time I went away last year, I came back to a different prime minister and a government basically about to collapse. I am going away next weekend for a week in Budapest, in Romania. I am not going to lie. If they do this again, I will be very annoyed. But also very happy as well, because, like I say, the Tory party tearing itself apart is a good thing, but also frustratingly annoying when you're a content producer and you're away from sort of, your studio where you can do these types of videos. But yeah, it looks like things are starting to move, and I said it yesterday. This is a pebble rolling down a mountain, and you don't know whether it could become an avalanche. And it looks like this pebble is starting to gain some momentum. And I'm still very much convinced, unless there becomes, or at least there emerges, or at least a consensus from the Conservative Party, or at least the Parliamentary Conservative Party, for a clear successor, I'm not 100% sure they'll get rid of Sunak quite yet. But it's every possibility, as we said, things may just pick up speed and, well, who knows? Who knows where he may very well be, because no one expected the type of chaos we saw in 2022. That is for absolutely certain. No one expected it or saw what was coming in 2022. So who knows what we may get to by the end of the year, going, wow, 2022 was a year, but 2023, that was even more crazy. So I'm just putting in, or at least trying to, give people some expectations of what may or may not happen. Like I say, as they say sometimes in politics, a week can be a long time, and Rishi Sunak has just spent an entire week doing nothing. So this is the consequence of what happens, as we said again just a couple of videos ago, what happens when Rishi Sunak did nothing. So let's go into this, because trouble is on the horizon. Trouble is certainly on the horizon. So before we do get into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And also down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So over we go to the Eye with their report on this, with the title of Rishi Sunak lied to us about Brexit. Angry Tories consider changing leader again. So, if Rishi Sunak had hoped that the coronation would allow him to move on quickly from the Conservative unrest over a disastrous set of local elections, he was wrong. What began as low rumblings of discontent at Prime Minister's question times on Wednesday had turned into howls of anger by the end of the day after the Business Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, announced a U-turn on plans to scrap or renew or retain all EU law by the end of the year. And a delegation of around 20 Brexiteer Tories marched into the office of the Chief Whip, Simon Hart, to make their feelings clear. What was so astonishing was the level of hostility towards the government and openness to speak in a way I've not heard in a long, long time, one of those present said. So there has been a very, very clear sea change. A very clear sea change. And we haven't seen this type of anger in some time. But yeah, a storm is on the horizon. A absolute storm is on its way. So accusations that Rishi Sunak had lied to us, that he had lied to the country about Brexit. Elsewhere, Red Wall MPs, which we've been talking about as well, have also been sounding the alarm over a lack of delivery on levelling up, on the levelling up agenda. And other Tory members were making fresh calls for tax cuts after their party lost more than over 1,000 council seats, defying the Conservatives' own expectation management and leaving MPs feeling that the Prime Minister and his cabinet are unpopular and failing to cut through to voters. With one MP saying the delusion within government is palpable. A storm is brewing. This is not good, and it's as we said before. There may not be well, we say at the moment. A couple of weeks ago, there was not this attitude to we need to get rid of Sunak, but events can very quickly, speed up and overtake. And as I said, go back to the pebble metaphor. If you drop a pebble off the mountain, will it become an avalanche? Well, you don't know. It depends what type of momentum that pebble builds up on its way down the mountain. But it certainly looks like things are picking up. And I expect Sunak's response initially maybe to be a cabinet reshuffle, to maybe try to calm expectations. And that certainly means that Kimi Badenoch probably not going to remain in her position, potentially even Suella Braverman, both considered at this moment in time massive failures in the Conservative Party. Like, no one thinks that they're doing a good job. So Sunak being seen to sort of get rid of them and bring in new, sort of fresh people, potentially is what might happen, or at least to begin with, to try and sort of calm these fears. Will it calm these stormy seas that seem to be picking up? Well, time will tell. Time will tell. So MPs are preparing for two conferences that will likely act as a lightning rod for further discontent. The disenchanted Boris Johnson supporters will be meeting at the Conservative Democratic Organisation, which we talked about just recently, gathering at Bournemouth today. The culture warrior right wingers will then meet at the National Conservatism Conference on Monday. That's something else we've got to certainly watch out for, because this is trying to define the direction of a Conservative Party, because they are completely directionless. They do not know which direction they want to go in. And to be honest, it's, do we want to go this Christian American crypto fascist type of direction with the National Conservative Conference, or do we go the Conservative Democratic Organization Conference, which is basically saying the current Conservative Party is not right-wing enough? So bear that in mind, what these people are saying at that conference on Saturday, that the current Conservative Party is not right-wing enough. If you know anything about the current Conservative Party, saying that they're not right-wing enough, Yes, should certainly be raising some eyebrows about how far right they want to sort of drag the Conservative Party even more. So, meanwhile, other senior party figures have warned Mr. Sunak that the unhappiness is widespread. The one former minister said something of a moderate, though, says that the party are giving up on Rishi, who is seen as a manager rather than a leader. They have said that the policy focused criticism around tax cuts, levelling up, and the extinguished bonfire of EU laws is a classic example of MPs being asked to vote for something before it is then watered down for reasons that no one really understands. And it could crystallize into something more dangerous for Mr. Sunak. Although few Tory MPs believe that the party can or will change their leader again before next year's general election, it was reported this week that some Brexiteers were raising the prospect of sending no confidence letters to the 1922 committee chair Sir Graham Badley to try and trigger a leadership challenge. A former minister agrees that that claiming the prime minister could face a challenge once his year-long grace period runs out in autumn. So there, so get ready, because if that's the case, that after his grace period is gone in the autumn, well, we're just going to spend the next couple of months building up to get rid of Sunak, to change to someone else. So Sunak is not in a very good place at all. He's already a very weak prime minister. The local elections have made him even weaker. The Red Wall MPs furious he won't deliver on levelling up, something which they heavily promised and were betting all their chances of re-election on. This hasn't materialised. But Boris Johnson wasn't delivering on that either. But Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor, who basically said, well, I'm not going to give them money. And of course, there's that infamous clip of him that, as I've said before, Labour should just play on repeat constantly, of him saying that he's taking away all this money from all those poor areas and giving it to more the affluent areas that really do not need the money. So these policy grumblers lead to rebellions, showdowns, and letters in, they say. The Tory party likes winning elections and views Starmer as beatable if we get on and do some stuff. There is a sense of frustration that number 10 don't realise they have to get a grip and give us hope quickly that we can win. The then Tory MPs will then roll the dice again if they think they will lose anyway. And that is very true. If they think they will lose, they will roll that dice. And it looks like that they've got their dice in their hand and they're just waiting. That's looking a bit inappropriate, but they're just waiting to roll those dice. And roll them they will. Other senior Conservatives, not aligned to the right, are also calling for radical change of direction in the wake of the local election defeat, warning that the unease amongst the party rank and file about Mr. Sunak, who was elected by MPs but not members. The members are angry, said a former cabinet minister from the centre of the party, says. They have a leader they didn't vote for and is repudiating a lot of what Boris Johnson and Liz Truss tried to do, that these people are who they effing voted for. It is against now a backdrop that senior MPs, including the former Home Secretary Priti Patel, ex-cabinet ministers such as Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries have hosted the CDO conference. This pressure group that was now set up in the wake of Boris Johnson's outing to try and strengthen the democracy within the Tories and give members more of a say is now being viewed as a Trojan horse to reinstall a former Prime Minister at the top of the party. However, Mr. Johnson is not attending this event in Bournemouth, and as some of his even stauncher supporters are disparaged about its aims. With former Minister James Dulridge saying if the CDO is a non-organisation without a problem to solve, we need to unite around Rishi's 5-point plan to deliver. Reorganising the party now would be an act of self-indulgent navel-gazing. Mr. Johnson's backers have also insisted that any noises off about a return of the former PM off the back of the local election results have not been authorised by the man himself. Mr. Patel, who also insists that the CDO is, quote, not a vehicle for Mr. Johnson's return, insisting that the conference is, quote, very topical at the moment, particularly as we've lost over 1,000 councillors in the last week. Bear in mind, let's say Johnson stayed in. This would have still been a disaster. Like, there is no way that if you kept Johnson, that these local election results would have been good. Absolutely not. I think they might have been even far, far worse. So she will use her speech to praise members as the backbone of the party, urging MPs to wake up and stop showing contempt to our foot soldiers. Ahead of the conference, she has said that MPs are frightened of democratization of our party. MPs do not want to be held accountable by the chairman of their association, and they disregard their own executives of their associations. This conference is about changing that and bringing the golden thread back from the grassroots into our party. It is, however, of course, the National Conservative Conference, which runs from Monday to Wednesday, which is sparking more interest in Westminster. And that is true because there are a lot more big name conservatives attending this conference. And to be honest, I think that is more worrying than anything else, partly because this conference has a lot of backing from, surprisingly, considering it's a nationalist movement, being heavily funded by, well, non-UK residents. Surprising. So, Home Secretary Suella Braverman, the Commons Secretary Michael Gove will both address the conference, which has sparked concerns about right-wingers forming a British version of the US Tea Party that reshaped the Republicans and paved the way for Donald Trump, which a lot of people have said that seems to be what that conference is trying to do. And like I say, that whole movement led to Donald Trump. So if you thought that Johnson and us doing Brexit was us doing the version of Donald Trump, well, the UK is about to say to America, please hold our pints. Because, oh boy, it is worrying. So this is being organized by the right-wing US Edmund Burke Foundation and is focusing on pulling a nation state at the heart of the Tories. Among the 50 speakers are the highly controversial figures, such as the commentator Douglas Murray, who once wrote the conditions for Muslims in Europe must be made harder across the board. Historian David Starkey, who was sacked from 2 university posts after saying that slavery did not constitute genocide because so many, quote, damn survived, and Trump supporting US Senator J.D. Vance, who wants a nationwide abortion ban. So, yeah. And I'm, either way, quotation marks for that quote because, again, I'm just being careful of YouTube's stuff. So that's why I did that, just in case anyone gets a bit fudgety about it, but I'm sure someone will. Anyway, centrist MPs who have long also been worried about the rise of the Christian right, personified by the culture warriors like Miriam Cates, again, our MP next door, Danny Kruger and Sir John Hayes, who are all addressing the conference, have sounded the alarm. Tory Commons Defence Chair Committee Chair Tobias Elwood warns that if we lose the next general election, it won't be our policies, Boris Partygate, or Truss's financial irresponsibility. It will be to blame. The downfall will be from within. Some on the right have already written off our chances and are busy trying to plot where they wish to take the party next. They forget our party's history that demonstrates again and again when we follow a pragmatic centrist agenda, we win elections and stay in power. When we do not, when we do no more to appease our base, we lose. Rishi Sunak has navigated us back to that centre-right space. Stability has returned. Polls are slowly narrowing. Depending, still doesn't look good for your winning, though. And colleagues should now rally behind the party's agenda rather than forming unhelpful variants of the People's Front of Judea. Another MP says that the moderates need to fight tooth and nail for the soul of the party and to make people realise again that elections are won from the centre ground. Something else I've said as well that the left needs to realise as well. Ryan Shorthouse, the chief executive of the centre-right Bright Blue think tank, warns that the event's backers are completely out of touch with a socially liberal modern Britain. Building a whole political ideology and election strategy around cultural conservatism would make British conservatism appear reactionary and out of touch. The conference is even drawing criticism from elsewhere on the right, with one Thatcherite senior MP warning that they are heavily tarred with Tea Party connections. They do not have mainstream appeal. They are very good at sound bites and platitudes, but appear to people that they have no substance or ability to govern. That ship has sailed. They have added that the event is being used by ministers to audition for future leadership contests. It is obvious positioning for those in government, they say. But Sir John insists that the NatCon conference is about bringing back, quote, real Toryism and a, quote, post-liberal, post-global age that emphasizes the importance of traditions, institutions, families, and nations and focuses on trying to cut immigrations and being tough on crime. He insists that we can win the next election provided we embrace the kind of things I've just described, rather than looking at triangulation in the style of Blair or David Cameron. The country is desperately crying out for a conservative renaissance, he said. Brexit made that crystal clear, but even now, some people haven't grasped the realignment. Wow. Yeah, I certainly agree with that other, that other Tory. Oh, yeah, they are out of touch. They are massively out of touch. Number 10 insiders are, however, confident that they are delivering on their policy promises will help them win back voters, and they've pointed out that other countries are copying some of the pledges made by Mr. Sunak. When we announced our refugee policy, that we are an outlier in Europe, but more and more countries are now doing the same as us now, a source close to the Prime Minister said. Despite the next local election results, ministers are still preparing for a general election as early as May of next year. So this time next year, we'll be in a general election. So I wonder if there will be one called sometime this autumn to happen May of next year. I really do wonder if that will be the case. Potentially, maybe even earlier. If Sunak wants to see off all this problems that he's having, maybe he just decides, you know what, I'm calling it now. If he wants to try and regain control of the party, or at least in some way, shape, or form, might be a good point, but we'll see. So they believe that going to the polls at the same time as a number of cities vote on the next mayor will also help the Conservatives. The party is expecting a boost from the popular incumbents, Ben Houchen and Andy Steele in Tees Valley in the West Midlands. Ben Houchen's popularity, because of all the Tees work stuff that's coming out, has nosedived. He is absolutely nosedived. So the chances of him potentially winning re-election have become very, very slim. And they will try to campaign hard, of course, against Sadiq Khan and his controversial policy of charging drivers for all the cars to enter central London. Chief Whip Simon Hart is also braced for a very bruising battle over the illegal immigration bill. But the government is otherwise confident of pushing through its agenda through Parliament by the time of the King's speech is due in autumn, with Sunak key to show delivery to voters. So, all that going on at the moment, these two very big conferences, the fallout of the CDO conference, yeah, it's bad. Like they as we said at the beginning, the message was loud and clear. Why did we ditch our prized thoroughbred election winner for this donkey? That was the message they were sending at that conference. And come Monday, you've now got this NatCon conservative conference. And if you've seen some of the clips coming out from this Saturday just gone, oh boy. I think some of those clips that are coming out from this conference that's going to have to take place between Monday and Wednesday, yeah, get ready for those, because those are going to be incredibly bad. Incredibly bad. But oof. And we've already got Patel's speech, Doris's speech as well to go over at some point in the near future as well. So get ready for us going over those. But yeah, oh boy. Yeah. A storm is absolutely brewing. That is very true. It's just, when does it all happen? This pebble metaphor that I'll return to again. At what point does this start to really build some serious momentum and become an avalanche? Because it certainly seems like the momentum a couple of weeks ago wasn't there, but has all of a sudden started to speed up. And as we said back then, there might have been not the drive to do this. But if they know that they're going to lose, or at least they suspect they're going to lose, and maybe instead we should pull out Penny Mordaunt as our secret trump card. Who knows what could happen in the next couple of months? But yeah, we could very well be seeing not only a Conservative leadership contest this year, but potentially even an early general election. Something we sort of did predict at the start of this year, and as I said, I changed my political calculus based on that. But I still think there's every chance a early general election this year. I still think there is a good chance. Lower than I thought at the start of the year, but still pretty high. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.